or for this 23rd session of our monthly lecture. As you're aware, the Center for Roma Studies and Culture Relations is a part of the Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, which was established almost 4 years ago. The objective of this center is to for a better understanding of Roma community across the world. And to achieve this objective, we started this monthly lecture series with the sole aim of understanding Roma's problems, issues, their lifestyle, their culture, their other aspects, historical, cultural, and linguistic, linking them to India. And we try to cover this lecture more with a more focus on country specifics, because we do have other lectures also, like we celebrate events to mark the Roma important dates of Roma calendar, like Roma Day, Roma Language Day, the Holocaust Memorial, etc., etc., which cover other issues. But this monthly lecture is country specific and specific subjects. And today we are going to cover one of the countries of Europe, that is Slovenia. And the lecture topic of the lecture is cultural, historical, linguistic, and legal position of Roma in Slovenia. And this lecture will be delivered by an eminent Roma personality from Slovenia, Dr. Vera Klopsik. And I'm happy that we had been having participation of eminent and important Roma personalities from across the world in our monthly lecture series. We have so far covered many countries which have a big population of Romas. We have already covered Turkey, we have covered Bulgaria, we have covered Romania, we have covered Spain, Hungary, and many more. So as I was looking at the Google, I see that the Roma population in Slovenia is around 0.5%, which is which should be in the range of 8 to 10,000 people. But I'm sure our presenter today will touch upon the population as well as the historical, as it is mentioned in a topic, and also the challenges which they face in Slovenia. We will be also interested to know what are the measures which are being taken under the EU scheme of integration, which Slovenian government is adopting, and how it is affecting the Roma population. In our past lectures, we have learned from our Roma academicians and scholars about the special challenges which the Roma community faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we would like to know what was the impact in Slovenia. Before we move forward on this presentation, I would request Mr. Narayan Kumar, who is the Honorary Director of the Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, to deliver the welcome address. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ambassador Sachdeva. It is my special privilege to be here and welcome this very august gathering, because Roma has gathered a special importance, keeping in view that government of India and government of Uttar Pradesh is considering to, as you have rightly mentioned, erect a memorial, befitting memorial, libraries, and also preserve documents related to the Romas and history of Roma. As a matter of fact, in 1962, when Pandit Nehru visited Belgrade and he knew about the Gypsy, he wanted to just discuss about them, and he after breaking all the protocol, and despite the opposition of the Indian government and the local government, he went to the villages where Romas were, the settlement of Romas, it is reported like that, and now it has been proved like that. And from that time, Government of India had a special interest. Pandit Nehru requested Bhikshu Chamanlal to write a book, and our embassy and Ministry of External Affairs facilitated him to visit different countries having the notable concentration of the gypsy population. Then again, when it was decided to have the meeting of the Romas near a suburb of London, our embassy deputed W.R. Rishi. W.R. Rishi is a well-known name. And in that meeting, it was decided that the 8th April will be, was designated as the Roma days. And it was also decided that the Roman flag have the Ashok Chakra, which will just, relate Romani population to India. So we have very close relation and collection with Roma linguistically, with the numerical, which our children have forgotten. Ek, do, teen, three. That was pronounced by Romas. The relationship, uncle, chacha, matha, sir, khan. So it is well known. I am here to welcome all the participants. And as regards Slovenia, our former ambassador was very, very interested, and Professor Gopal Arora, Syam Parande visited. Of late, our research fellow Jamir had also gone there. So I hope that this session will be very fruitful, informative for us also. And we remember, I would like to pay tribute to W.R. Rishi, Dr. Raghuveer, and also Shyam Singh Sasi, who have done a lot. Our ARSP has just, about organized 2 conferences, and we are planning to have one more conference to consolidate the relations with the Romani population. And as Atal Bihari Vajpayee and again Sushma Swaraj has assured, I am hopeful that Government of India will also give official recognition of Romani population as the people of Indian origin. So, Ambassador Sachdeva, I thank you again to giving me opportunity to welcome this August gathering and scholars, and we are very keen to listen to them. So, thanks again.
Thank you very much, Narayanji. Now I'll give the floor to Jamil to introduce the presenter, as well as give a brief introduction about the topic of the today's monthly lecture. Jamil, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, sir. And I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Vera for accepting the invitation to deliver the 23rd lecture. And I thank all the participants who are participating in this monthly lecture. And thank you very much. And today we have a speaker, Dr. Vera Klopčis from Slovenia. She is an assistant professor, the Faculty of Law in Maribor, and she's also well-known and well-established researcher in the field of minority affairs and human rights issues. Dr. Vera is a member of the Slovenian delegation in the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is based in Berlin, and she is also honorable member of Roma Union of Slovenia. Besides that, Dr. Vera is an author and a co-author of several scientific monographs and research articles she published, and she is a well-known scholar on Roma issues in Slovenia. And thank you very much, Dr. Vera, for delivering the 23rd lecture. As the topic, that is the cultural, historical, linguistic, and legal position of Roma in Slovenia. This is a very wide and comprehensive topic, and I'm sure that Dr. Vera is expert enough to deliberate on these aspects of Roma community in Slovenia. As we know that the Roma community in Slovenia is very diverse. And as our chairperson said that the population is around 10,000 and 10,000, but as per the census, that is around 3,500 to 4,000. So, but there are some other independent body and a research Roma institution that estimates the population is around 15,000. And there is also many reasons. There are many reasons for the discrepancy in the Romani population in Slovenia. Most of the Roma people live in the easternmost region of Slovenia at Primoria, the bordering Austria, Hungary, Croatia, and besides Murska Sobota and Lendava and the Maribor, where the Dr. Vera resides in. That also accommodates the good number of Romani population. But it is imperative to note that the majority of Roma people in Slovenia live in a very poor socioeconomic conditions because of poverty and being dependent on financial social assistance, other forms of public funds. According to the report of Amnesty International 2022, Roma community doesn't have access, adequate access to the drinking water and even the toilet, as they live in informal settlements. And the report also points out the widespread discrimination which prevents Roma families from buying and renting housing in other areas. So they have to reside in those settlements which are deprived of the basic amenities and the basic facilities for their survival. So a survey in Slovenia that showed that many Roma changed their surname due to the stigmatizations of local community, and because they changed their surname with an aim to getting employment and eluding discrimination and stereotypes. Because still, unlike other European countries, Slovenia is not untouched. Almost the same situation of Roma in Slovenia in every indicators of in every human indicators. But despite all these, because I had a privilege to visit the Murska Sobota and I visited the Romani settlement in Murska, and the Murska Sobota is the best example of cooperation and cohabitation of Roma and non-Roma communities in Europe today. Because that Romani Mahala has everything, almost all the basic the facilities. Even they have the fire brigade and the electric grid, and all these basic facilities are there. So, and there is no such hard feeling or any rancor and malice towards Roma community in that area, because there is a very peaceful coexistence and very harmonious coexistence. I myself witnessed that. So, and other scholars also pointed out that the Murska Sobota is the paragon of cooperations and means the peaceful coexistence between Roma communities as well as non-Roma communities or the local populations. And Roma, as the historical aspects, Roma came to the Balkans in the 13th century, as we have the historical account about the arrival of Roma in Balkan, especially in the Ottoman Empire, and they have been living there since since 13th century. But the first record of the Roma people in Slovenia goes back to the 14th century, as they first arrived at Somogi, an administrative unit of the Kingdom of Hungary, situated near to Primoria. So Roma also, in the context of culture, Roma have been preserving the ethnicity and their ethnic culture You can find a lot of ethnic examples of ethnic culture in terms of wedding, in terms of their family, in terms of their day-to-day life. A lot of similarities between Indian cultures and, means the Indian cultures, I can say that that's quite obvious and explicit in their day-to-day life, and they preserve. And they have the Romani Museum, and as well as the first Romani, the equestrian center and a facility in Slovenia that is also located in Comanche. So these are the things, the institutionally as well as the individual point of view, they still preserve and practice the ethnic and archaic culture which they carried from India during their exodus from India in the 11th century, in 1018 or 1019. Despite that, there is the government of Republic of Slovenia formulated a new national program in line with the European Union Roma strategic framework. In consultation with the representatives of the Roma, I think that Dr. Vera was also the part of that, the part of the consultation committee, and as well as other institutions and organizations working for the Roma communities. The new national program for the period of 2021 to 2030, in order to fight and prevent anti-Gypsyism, discrimination, and it also aims at reducing the poverty and social exclusion, as well as to improve inclusion of Roma children in the mainstream education. That is also very important. Even though there are some places in Slovenia, like Murska Sobota, they have the kindergarten, Roma kindergarten, and however, there is a striking need of improving or increasing the inclusion of Roma children in the mainstream education of Slovenia, as well as inclusion of Roma members of the inclusions of the Roma members in the quality and sustainable employment, because the most of the Roma people they visit like Austria, Vienna. You can find the Roma working in Vienna in a restaurant or in other leather factories, or in Croatia you can find. So they are as a labor migrant visiting to Romania in order to improve their living conditions. And this is also one of the very interesting point that the Roma people, most of the mainstream populations, they have envy, that is because of their good financial situations in Roma, in Slovenia. So I don't want to speak further because we have a very eminent speaker and expert speaker, and I believe that she will touch upon and deliberate on these aspects in detail in her lecture. So thank you very much, Mr. Sachdeva sir. Thank you very much. Now it's yours.
Thank you, Jamil, for the introduction. Now is the time for our presenter. So I request Dr. Vera Klopsik to take the floor and present her lecture on the topic of cultural, historical, linguistic, and legal position of Roma in Slovenia. The floor is yours, Dr. Vera.
Thank you very much. As I already told before, I am honored to be among the lecturers, and I am especially glad that there will be a publication prepared after this lecture where I could present more data. And of course, I also expect some questions after the lecture, and I think it would be very interesting to see, because as my colleague, he knows a lot about Slovenia, but maybe the others are not so much informed about the situation in Slovenia. So in my lecture, I will just give an overview of the historical context, situation now, and open issues, but also I would like to tackle a specific role of Slovenian linguist, philosopher, lawyer, Franz Miklosic, who who made a lot of studies about Roma language. It was more than 100 years ago, 140 years ago, when he had informers in different countries, and then he collected dialects of Roma language and then published it in Vienna within Academy of Science. And then he suggested, and his presumption was that exactly this linguistic research confirmed that Roma came from India, from the northern part of India. So I will tell you also something more about Miklosic. And what I would also like to say, that I use term Roma. Also our constitution use term Roma community. But when I will quote historical documents, I will use original wording, and the name used in these historical documents before 100 years ago, for example, they use word Tsigan. So my terminology is Roma, Romani language, Romani culture. It is also terminology in Slovenia, but in historical documents, there is this terminology, Tsigan, and I will use this term. In Slovenia now, what we can say, it was already mentioned that we have, according to the census, number of Roma is 3,426, but estimation is that number is higher, about 15,000. But as what is very specific for Slovenia that could be interesting for other researchers. We have two groups of traditionally settled Roma. In Prekmurje, it was mentioned, it is near the border with Hungary and Austria, and another group of traditionally settled on the southern Slovenia, near the border with Croatia. And then it is half of the population of Roma. And the largest number is actually a group of Roma who came from other parts of ex-Yugoslavia, and they settled in industrial centers like Maribor, Velenje, Ljubljana, and they came 30, 40 years ago, and they came, their educational level is higher than if we are going, we are talking about this population. It is a fact that in the historical context, position of Roma living in Ottoman Empire was actually better. And Dragoljub Acković also confirmed in his research this, and they were more educated than our Roma, traditionally settled Roma in Slovenia. And they also use another variety of Roma language. So even in such a small group in numbers, we can see in Slovenia these two different historical approaches. This traditionally settled Roma in Slovenia, they shared the destiny of other Roma in Western Europe. And then this group of non-traditionally settled Roma who came from other parts of ex-Yugoslavia, they brought more intensive use of language and another traditions and another way of life. So in Slovenia, really, there could be an example for further research. So I will now start with this presentation. I will tell you first about historical context, then about legal status in Slovenia, integration, especially in the field of education and employment, which is on the line of these principles of European Union and obligations of all states, members of European Union, and then tackle also some open issues. So I will start, but as I told you, I hope that after the lecture, we could exchange our reviews, and maybe I can then somehow add more information which is interesting for you. As I told you, this integration process in Slovenia actually faced the problem of stereotypes and discrimination as in other countries in European Union. And so it is very well that we first start with this historical context. It was mentioned that Roma came to Balkan in 13th, 14th century. But if we look at the birth certificates, registers, then we can find in Slovenia first register of Roma child in Bogojina in 1681. So it is in part in Prekmurje. And then in Gorenska, in Radovljica in 1876. And it is reliable information because it is written in these registers. What is also interesting to say that in the past, Roma traditionally worked as blacksmiths and often helped farmers with works needed, and Sinti in Gorenska. So Sinti, it is a group of Roma which live in the northern part of Slovenia, and they were very well known as musicians and managers of carousels. They were traveling around, and what is a specific connotation is that also women performed, worked as musicians. So it was something special for Sinti in Slovenia. And if we say on the global level, we must say that the history of Roma in Slovenia was marked by forced relocation, segregated settlements, or expulsions of Roma. And it led to the social exclusion of Roma. It was mentioned that stereotypes are still alive, but stereotypes are based on this exclusion. There was no communication between Roma and non-Roma. And especially majority population couldn't accept their nomadic way of life. And a lot of these measures and legal orders were aimed to stop their nomadic way of life. In their lifestyle was explained and as vagrancy, begging, and it was associated with criminal offenses. So this, what happened in history, in the past, actually is present also today in these stereotypes against Roma. So it is still alive. And these counting authorities wanted and asked municipalities to prepare lists of Roma, members of Roma community, or at that time, Tsigan. And they used this list that to expel Roma and not to allow members of Roma and not to allow them to settle in some place, because behind all that there was also a fear that this municipality and authorities will have to take care about Roma who will not be able in older age to who will need care and facilities and money. So they expelled Roma. First, they made a list, At least on the list, there were some Roma who had this domicile right to stay in the municipality. All the others were expelled. And as I mentioned, that Roma were working, especially on the when they on the horse trade, and then they were very famous. And then when authorities wanted to punish them, they just denied the right for Roma to access the fair. So I think that it was a lot of these such measures, and in the history, marginalization, and then also what they used to work when we are talking about the history, that Roma were very, very well known in all parts of Slovenia as experts and collectors of natural herbs. And so people asked them for help when they had some health problems. How this approach of authorities was, I will read you a sentence in the document which was published in Rudolfovo in 1900. Rudolfovo, now it is named Novo Mesto. And then in this document, we published this document also in one of the publications of our institute. It is on the cover. And they said, as it is, I will quote, it is very well known that the gypsies, at that time, the Tsigani, cause many problems for the local population. Continues, then document continues and say, their lifestyle is described with words such as vagrancy, drifting, and begging, which was automatically tied to crime. And it was a special sentence, housebreaking in the gypsy style. So they were obliged to send children to school and then people to work. And then another shows that another document, I will quote, that it was aim was to change the Roma's nomadic lifestyle. And it was written in that document. I have to say, I was working in the archives in Novo Mesto in Ljubljana, and I have all these documents. What I quote, it is from that documents, and I translated it. And it was written, gypsies must be prevented by all means from moving about outside their households. They must be stopped at every step. Do not allow them to place tents in the open air. And then it was what I read before, it was in time of Austro-Hungarian Empire, but such approach continued also in the time of Kingdom of Yugoslavia, in the time between First and Second World War. And in direction in one of that time in 1931, one of order said, it was almost 100 years ago, I quote, they should be denied access to the fair grounds. Gypsy horses must not be allowed into the fair grounds out of veterinary and police reasons. They are not allowed to have dogs as they are unnecessary, but they also train them to warn of the arrival of the police by barking or train them to hunt. And so it is just to show how it was in all these documents. First, stop their nomadic life. Then not allow them to work. And then say that they are parasites, they don't work, and show that they them as how to say, they said plague, like a plague. It was a term used. And then as I told you, that such approach was also continued in the time of Kingdom of Yugoslavia, Kingdom of Serbs, Slovenes, and Croats. And then they especially wanted to have a list of Roma. Count them, count them. We want to have list of Roma. And the aim of this list was to expel them and control them. But actually, one of the policemen here in Novo Mesto, he said, it was in his letter in 37, then he said, I will read how he said, this register, he made the list, and then he said, this register is in no way correct, as it is very difficult to count the gypsies. One would more easily count swallows, as the gypsies are constantly moving. They are more or less similar. Their surnames are only Brajdic or Hudorovic or Jurkovic, and they are related through concubinate. So it is enormously difficult to explain their family origins. Roma, who had no right to stay in the municipality, were expelled by the government, as they wanted to avoid having to support them. In later age, as I told you, they denied any obligation towards the gypsy plague, and they called this like gypsy problem. And so, as I mentioned, this is subject also of these prejudices and discrimination which is present in Slovenia still today, that Roma don't want to work, that they only want they are very near all these criminal offenses. And then it led to the mistrust between Roma and the majority population. And so the reason was that Roma in Slovenia, they built their own Roma world, then so-called Romanothem. And it is also the title of their publication. It is called Romanothem. And they built their system of values. And as there are different dialects in Slovenia among Roma population, non-Roma are in all these dialects called Gadje. So it is another word. Romanothem is very specific. And then this, as I mentioned, this approach toward Roma culminated before the Second World War, also in Slovenia, with some very, how to say, cruel proposals. And here I will read a proposal of the mayor of Kranj, Fran Ogrin, which said in 1937, so before the Second World War. He said in his speech, I will quote, in 1936 was it, in Kranj, if the flawless implementation of administrative and criminal measures and the social order are connected with careful organization, begging, vagrancy, wandering, and gypsyism could be greatly eliminated. And then listen, as far as the gypsies are concerned, it is high time to decide whether gypsies and their lives will be included into the existing social and state order through regular schooling and military services, or if we will eliminate the gypsies from society by relocating them to certain uninhabited islands along the coast, as some authors have already suggested. With the growing number of gypsies, the gypsy problem is becoming a danger to the public order and morale. So it was on the line of that Nazi and racial laws which were adopted in Germany. And culmination of such approach was actually Roma genocide, which happened in the time of the Second World War. And the Nazi regime, they adopted race laws where Roma were actually aim of this final solution was actually then that Roma will have to, aim was to eliminate Roma and destroy Roma. And in Slovenia, we have to say that Slovenia in the Second World War was divided among three occupators, Germany, Hungary, Italy, and even in the southern part, some parts were at that time occupied by Croat and independent state of Croatia, I mean that Ustaša state. So the position of Roma was different because these occupators, they have slightly different approach toward Roma. In Gorenska region, which was occupied by Germany, where there was Sinti population, they were expelled, and in one order it was written, you have to go, otherwise we will expel you, or so a lot of them, they were expelled to Serbia and other parts of, mostly in Serbia. So it was the situation of Sinti. In the land, part of the land which was occupied by Italy, a lot of them were sent to the concentration camps. And then in Italy, and in 1940, in December 1943, there was a rule that all of Roma have to be sent to Auschwitz. And one family, because this documentation actually is not perfect yet, one family from Novo Mesto, which I quoted before, Novo Mesto, of 77 members of Roma community were sent, including children, were sent to Auschwitz, and then there is no any data, actually they were killed there. In Slovenia, we had a famous Romolog, Vanek Šiftar, and he tried to collect data about the victims of Roma genocide, and it is one of the articles where he wrote about this these members of Roma community from Novo Mesto who were expelled. So it is confirmed also in the registers about this, but also a lot of others suffered in the time of Second World War. Also some group in Jasenovac, and monuments were built in Murska Sobota. There is a special table on this memory, and in near Murska Sobota also there is such a memorial table about this. So about Roma in Slovenia in the time of genocide, lot time had to, after they didn't actually want to speak about this memories, and only 9 years ago, 2015, when we prepared together with Cultural Center Synagogue in Maribor, we prepared a publication. Then one of the young members of Roma community, Sandy Horvat, he published a memory of his grandmother who was silent 50 years. He didn't want to speak about it. But then he spoke about her experience in the time of Second World War, and then it is published in the publication Poraimos, and this first article is also translated in English language. So all of you who are interested, you could read more about this in the publication, because what is important to collect authentic opinions, authentic stories, what happened, because it is very specific with this issue of Roma genocide, that first of all, Roma didn't write about this, and some of them even didn't want to speak about this, but in the arts, in the books, in the music, there is a memory of this. And Dragoljub Acković, I mentioned him, he is Roma, how to say, writer. He also is director of Roma Museum in Belgrade. He wrote that even anthem, Jelem Jelem, it contains a reference to the Roma genocide, when there is written also, I had a big family, but it was murdered by Black Legia, Crna Legia. So that memory to that genocide is present in the anthem and present in the memory, but not expressed on the way as majority was used to talk about it. But they expressed their pain through another, as I said, artistic field, on the artistic field and in the music. Nowadays, 10 years ago, Roma Union started with a special commemoration event on August 2nd, and every year they prepare a seminar, discussion, and somehow they want to inform members of Roma community, but also non-Roma. Actually, it was not known in Slovenia about this Roma genocide which happened. So it is about what I wanted to say about Roma. You know that at European level, August the 2nd was established as a memorial day on Roma genocide, because on that day in Auschwitz, in Birkenau, in one day, Roma, about 3,000 Roma were killed. And I had the opportunity to listen to Branko Lustig, who was at that time in Auschwitz, who had at that time 11 years. And then when he was sent to Auschwitz, and then he had a special role as a boy to go to this Zigeunerlager every day, send messages. And then he said that when he, on August 3rd, he came to this lager, everything was empty, everything was, no one was there. Actually, he saw with his eyes as a young boy how this was, how it happened. So it is one of the reasons why this August 2nd is important in Slovenia for all Roma community. In Slovenia, Roma, they call Roma genocide Poraimos, and in other parts, it is Samudaripen. It means all killed. Ne? And it is the way how to remember and how to continue with research and collecting data. Now I will tell you more about this. I mentioned Franz Miklosic and his contribution to the research on Romani language. And it was at that time, 19th century was called, how to say, gold years for academic research. And these researchers, they actually studied Romani language, but they had no any connection with Roma community. They had no empathy to their problems in their life, but actually they were interested in the language. And it was, I will quote here, Friedrich Pott. He wrote in the foreword to his book, Zigeuner in Europa in Asien, in 1844. And he said that it was produced without ever having had more personal experience of gypsies than a fleeting glimpse of a few individuals. And in the 1860s were bountiful years for studies of Romani, many written in Germany. And then he said, towering above all others was Franz Miklosic at the University of Vienna, who was by then able to speak of having at his disposal abundant, almost overabundant material from all countries where gypsies live. And he studied dialects, and he said, as I mentioned, that he had informers in 12 countries, and then he compared these dialects, words, and then it compared to Sanskrit. And then his presumption was that Roma came from India. And he said, he wrote about 800 pages, as I told you, in German, and also in literature. They relate to him as a jurist from Vienna. It is not mentioned that he is from Slovenia, and his hypothesis, he wrote about this in the chapter. So I will quote, on the Indian homeland of the gypsies and the time of their departure from India. And so I think that we in Slovenia can be proud that we have such a brilliant author about Romani. For me, it was very interesting also that he wrote a special chapter on the influence of Slavic languages in Romani, and also influence of Roma language in other languages. For example, people, a lot of them, they don't know that Lova, Jukala, and some other words had actually originated from Roma language. And he, as I told you, 800 pages, I saw that his work, and I think it is really very well that he knew that these dialects are different in different countries, but also with the comparison, then he traced the root of Romani language, and he made this presumption that they came from India, and then he also confirmed this with the linguistic research. So it is a big contribution of Franz Miklosic, and I hope that once we will have also this opportunity to translate it in Slovenian language. It is also very interesting. We started with the project with the Roma Union, and then only some of these stories were translated paramici and in Slovenian language. So one small part is already available in Slovenian language. It is about Miklosic. And then if I come to the situation now in Slovenia, If I start with legal status, I am lawyer. So I hope it will not be too specific, because what I think it is important when we are talking about legal status of Roma in Slovenia is that in the Constitution of Republic of Slovenia, in Article 65, we have a special article dealing with the position of Roma in Slovenia, but it is called Roma ethnic community. So we have national minorities, but Roma are in this Article 65 defined as a Roma special community which has special rights. What does it mean? It means that in addition to articles in the context of protection of human rights, Roma as a community have special rights, and society, it means government, is obliged to give them special rights to to improve their social conditions, which were also mentioned today, that in some parts of Slovenia there is really they live really in very poor conditions. So in this constitution, which was adopted in 1991, there is a special reference to Roma community and special rights. And after that, it was a long discussion. What shall we do now on the field of legal protection of Roma? Shall we adopt specific laws and or a special law or Roma community? And this other approach prevailed. In 2007, a special law on Roma community was adopted, which regulates organization of Roma community. A special Roma council was established, and then there are written also obligations of all government bodies and institutions to help Roma to improve their position. Already in 1995, there was a first program of aid for Roma. It was aimed to improve their social conditions, employment, education, and after that, these programs were adopted for 5 years, and now it was a national program of measures was adopted for a long time. I mean, from 2021 to 2030. So almost 10 years. And it is on the line of this recommendation of European and obligations which Slovenia has under as a member of European Union. The main focus is on the level on education, how to improve education, because when we are talking about unemployment of Roma, first sentence is always, yes, it's because of they are not educated, and the majority of Roma, more than 90%, are unemployed and living on the social benefit. It is actually a very, very high number. And on the level of education, a lot of measures were also are included in these programs of measures for Roma. One of them, it is very effective, is inclusion of Roma assistants in elementary schools. And this project started already 20 years ago, and then more than 20 years ago. And then this work of Roma assistants is now included in the regular employment programs of educational institutions. And it is important because Roma children have someone who can help in concrete subjects, but also someone who knows Romani language and knows a specific situation of Roma children. There was a project also aimed to promote inclusion of Roma children, and in that project, researchers identify that they should improve connections with Roma parents. Some Roma parents who have difficult own experience when they integrated in the school system, they are afraid that they will lose their children if they will leave them to go to kindergarten or to go to school. And then they started, it was one of the recommendations of this project. It was conducted by Institute for Pedagogical Institute, was that that they have to work more with parents, and then also to stimulate them to speak Romani language with children, because sometimes Romani parents who had, as I mentioned, most of them negative experience, they didn't want to teach children to speak Romani language because their opinion was that they will have better chances to continue with education if they will have better knowledge in Slovene, and that it is not there is no need to learn Romani language. There was already mentioned, but it is general what I'm talking. Of course, we have also a very good experience. It was already mentioned today, kindergarten near Murska Sobota. There is Mahala, Pushcha, and there was kindergarten established for Roma children in 1961. And then results were very good. But what is a very positive, that also non-Roma parents, they send their children to this kindergarten. So it is one of the examples of good practice where they can overcome prejudices and then build this coexistence for Roma and non-Roma from the very beginning. So as it was mentioned, in Slovenia, we have now in this situation, we have very good legal background. We fulfill all these obligations which Slovenia as a country has as a member of European Union, but these problems, these stereotypes, which were built in centuries ago, are still alive. And what is one of the signs is when in public discourse, some people, they use word Tsigan when they want to humiliate and Roma people, and it is one of the problems which is also reflected in all this social media, when they don't express themselves as with name, but then with their comments, they just want to humiliate someone from Roma community, or just reflect some negative attitudes. Nevertheless, we can say that in Slovenia, there are improvements on the level of communication in public discourse. There is no more there is not possible to have discussion about Roma without Roma. It is a big step, and academic research must be always included Roma members of Roma community are always included also in academic research. They conduct also research themselves. Within Roma Union, there is also a center for research, and I am also a member of that center. They publish a lot of publications, and there is also a special program on radio on every Monday, Amarodrom, about which is prepared, Roma journalists prepare, and also on TV. It is, I think, on 14 days, every 14 days. So also majority have a possibility to learn about Roma, and I think it is a good step. And I hope that all together, I mean, also Roma and non-Roma, that we will find a way how to deal with this negative attitudes which are still present in Slovenia. I hope that I will not tell you, I will write in the publication all this data, so you can see also in numbers, and also this geographical distribution is very interesting. But I think that what I said is enough for discussion, and I hope that I will receive some questions which will help me to, how to say, focus on the points you are interested. So thank you very much for your attention, and I am listening to hear what you want to hear more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vera. Now the floor is open for questions, comments, discussions. So let me see who starts first.
Can I ask question, sir?
Please, Ashish ji.
Yes, my question is that
Yeah.
Dr. Vera has found some similarity between Indian language and Roma community in Slovenia.
Yeah, Dr. Vera, would you like to respond to this about the Indian language and Romani language similarities?
Yeah, maybe I was not clear enough. What I wanted to say is that research showed that words from Sanskrit and Romani language are similar, especially linguists say that 60% of the Romani language actually is similar among Roma communities all around the world. And other words they borrowed from nations where they were traveled. And Rajko Đurić said one in his book, he said, Romani language is the only book we brought with us from India. So in the Romani language, there is the key how to understand their roots. And it is a similarity, of course, and that Roma language, what I said also, Miklosic wrote a special chapter of the influence of Romani language in Slavic languages. And then he made some examples of these words, lova, jukala, and some other. So it will be a connection between understanding of the culture and the history of Roma, which contributes also to understanding of other philosophy. And also, if I can quote Rajko Đurić, he is a famous poet and activist, actually. He died 2 years ago. And then he said, and a lot of other philosophers agree, what is the difference? What we can learn from Roma culture is that what is important is not to say to have, but what is important is to be. So it means that another values are important for Roma community, and this is this tie which we have this with the philosophy from another part of the world, I mean India. So it is really a richness for our society, that this only way how to what you have and to have more and more. So it is not important for the philosophy, and all, which is also reflected in the language, philosophy, to be, so as a human being. So it is the connection and influence of Romani language and Roma culture in our life in Slovenia.
Jamir, you may like to add on these similarities of Indian language and Roma? Jamir?
But point is that Sanskrit, also Fraser, one of the authors, he wrote just similarities, some words which are only slightly different from Sanskrit and the Romani language. So it is the influence and the connection.
Ashish ji, I may add that many of the the counting and the body parts, there are some similarity of Romani language vis-a-vis the Indian language.
Yeah.
Jamir has done a lot of work on that, so I thought he will add on that.
Sir.
Jamir?
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Ashish ji, I'll send you my research paper on the kinship between Romani language and Indic languages.
Wonderful, sir. That will be really useful while developing the memorial here in Kannauj.
That is on public platform. That is on Academia. Academia. So I will send you the link, and I will send you the PDF file of the Romani language and other connections. Thank you very much. Now, I think Sylvia, do you have any questions?
I have a question. Because you said about the assistant of Roma education in your country, we have a very similar solution in Poland, because we have the assistant of Roma education in Poland for children and young Roma, and they work at school, and they are hired by the schools, and we have almost 90 people who work in this field now, and officially we have here in Poland we have 12,000 Roma people officially, but of course it's I think it's a bigger group. And my question is, how many people in your country, if of course you have this data, how many people in your country work in this profession, and do they are hired by their schools or NGO or any other entities? Okay, it was my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is very important issue that we can also make some comparative discussion and overview. Here in Slovenia, I can say that when Roma assistants started to work, it was a Roma union in Slovenia which had a project that they said in the Roma Union as an organization that these Roma assistants all also need to have some knowledge about history, about language, about culture of Roma, so that it is not enough that they are working in school and that that they speak at least on some level Romani language, but it is important also to educate these Roma assistants. And it was a European project, and at that time 31 schools in Slovenia was involved in this project. And I think that it is important that they are employed as regular employers, because when it was only on the basis of project, it will work 3 years, and after that, again, there will not be any funds for their work. So it is very important in such projects, in such ideas, to have this long-term strategy. And then in Slovenia, there is a long-term strategy, and it is called improvement of the inclusion of Roma in the field of education. And also this work of Roma assistants is included on a regular basis. As I mentioned, then Roma Union, then they just upgraded this work with the condition that they have to also be informed and to have a knowledge about culture and history of Roma. I think it is very important. Another problem, there is a problem which occurred by that some assistants were not accepted within Roma community. So you have on one side, you have first to try to educate, train Roma assistants to have some knowledge, but on the other side, to achieve that Roma community accept Roma assistants in person. If they don't accept this person, because there are a lot of quarrels among Roma members of Roma community, if they will not accept this concrete person, it will not be effective work. So at the moment, I cannot tell you direct concrete number. Last year, I had an interview with a Roma assistant in Maribor, and she works in one school where also results of Roma children are very good. And she explained me what is her work and how she helped. And at that time, last year, 2 of them, they managed to finish 9th-year school, elementary school. But on the other hand, one part of Roma community in Maribor, they don't accept her as a person, and they don't allow her. She showed me a letter. They don't allow her to work with their children. So it is, as if I make, how to say, conclusion, it is very important to have Roma assistant. On general, we can say that it has a very good results, but also we have to keep in mind that there must be some consultations before employment of assistant among parents about the whole community if they are ready to work with assistant. I hope you understood what are concrete problems, but within the system, these Roma assistants are paid on a regular basis.
Okay.
But only on elementary school. Another problem is when these children have to go to secondary school, they are again alone, without help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have very similar situation here in Poland.
Yeah, I know, because when I have a lot of experience, and I know that if some Roma have negative experience, for example, one of them told me, when I came to school, teacher told me, you you will not succeed in the school and some other words, you know. And of course, he is then afraid to send child there, and they don't trust institutions. If we say in general, what is the problem? They don't trust institutions. They will somehow adapt to the situation, but they will not be active in a promotion of these values. So it is very important to have this communication, first communication, and then to see which kind of measure is appropriate. As I mentioned, that there was a research project within Pedagogical Institute. That lady, she's member of Roma community who worked within that research project. She explained how it was when they started to work. And then what was the best result? Best result was when children asked, will you come also tomorrow? So it is success, you know, and then it is also a title of that publication from the research project. When you have this trust and the wish from the members of community, then you can say that this measure is successful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Any question? I have one question for Dr. Vera. In 1991 Constitution of Romania recognizes the three minorities in its constitutions, Hungarian, Italian, and Roma. But to a great extent, the Roma have inferior protections of constitutional protection in comparison to their counterparts, Italian and Hungarian counterparts. Roma community is not only minority, but also the worst marginalized and downtrodden in Slovenia. The constitution also protects the political, social, cultural, and political rights of the minority. But situation is quite different. Reality speaks otherwise, because the political representation of Roma community in the Romanian government or in the administrative body is next to none. So in a democracy like Slovenia, there is such a glaring discrimination against Roma community, though there is a protection, and indirectly, or in an alluding manner, the constitution itself discriminates against the Roma people. So I want to know what is your stand, and what kind of steps and measures or the programs initiated or taken by the civil society organizations or the government itself, because there is being the member of Romani Union, the Slovenia also there is no Roma representative in the European Parliament. So there was one lady, I think she served from 2009 to 2020 and 2022, and then she became the part of the Slovenian government. And so the Roma people, systematically, though there is a constitutions, the legal protections, and they are there, but that is nothing but eyewash. And what you think that what are the steps? Because the new policy, like a new program, as I mentioned in my opening speech, that the government has initiated the new national program in line with the European Union Roma Strategic Framework 2020 to 2030. So what are the steps and what is on the cards for the improving and ameliorating the political situation of Roma in the Romanian government, in the Slovenian government? Sorry.
Yeah, it is an excellent question, and it tackles the issue of protection of national minorities. In the time between First and Second World War, when this protection of national minorities was established as an international legal system, point was that actually national minorities were only groups of the nation settled in another country, in neighboring country. So these groups which settle on the territory, and it is a problem in understanding for some people, experts and politicians in Slovenia, to understand that it was in the past, it was a protection based on territorial principle, which was designed because of the political interest of the states. States wanted to have protection for their groups which were living in another country, but on the territory designed. And then in 1994, in the Council of Europe, Framework Convention for National Minorities was adopted. And in this Framework Convention, there is written that protection for national minorities is designed for these groups traditionally settled, but also that protection of national minorities is based on international, is part of the international protection of human rights. So also members of other groups which don't have this geographical territory designed are entitled for the protection as members of national minority. And it is almost 30 years. I was member of the committee which prepared Framework Convention. And it took a long, long time to explain people in Slovenia, who decision makers, to explain that territorial principle, which is based where protection of Italian and Hungarian minority is based, is one of the possibilities. So, of course, they are entitled for this protection. These bilingual territories are described and defined by law. It is one part of the protection, but also all other ethnic groups, not only Roma, also Serbs, Croats, they deserve protection as a part of human rights protection. And again, it is a long struggle, if I can say, because in Slovenia, there is opinion in this geographical area of 5 municipalities. Hungarian minority has collective rights. If they're outside of this territory, they don't have such rights. Okay, territory is very important. It is not important how many people live there. It is one of the approaches. Of course, they are entitled to this protection, but another approach is, which I share with you, that also other groups, and especially individuals, members, should have rights as a members of national minority. And again, in 2002, special law, legal regulation was adopted for political participation of members of Roma community, but only for the members from the tradition of the region where Roma are traditionally present. Only in these parts of Prekmurje and in Dolenjska region, they have this right to elect a member for municipal council. So it is nonsense. In Maribor, where the largest number of Roma live, they don't have right to have representative municipal council. Of course, he could be elected on some other list, but in this region, which is designed and written in the law, which municipalities, which villages are in this area of traditional settlement, they have by law, by officio, they have a right to have one representative in municipal council. But it is the way of thinking, you know, it is very hard to approach decision makers, even constitutional court. There was one case, and they said, yes, Roma are mentioned in the constitution. It is in the decision of constitutional court. They have right to special rights, but they are not national minority. They are ethnic community. So it is one, and whenever I try to explain that actually Framework Convention gives possibility to apply both approaches, both, of course, if these are rights which are written in the Constitution for national and minorities, even not national minorities, but it is written national community, narodna skupnost in the Constitution. Okay, it is one story, but another story is that, of course, also Roma should have a representative in the parliament, not only at local level, not only for traditionally settled Roma, but to have, and it is, recently we had an approach and project about employment of Roma, when one of the suggestions again is to have also representative in the parliament, regardless of traditionally settled and non-traditionally settled Roma. So I think that what you asked, actually what you pointed, it is a problem which now, after 30 years, hopefully will have also, will reflect also in the field of political decision makers. Because it is also interesting, they are talking now, excuse me, maybe I am, I will use more, how to say, everyday wording, but I ask representatives of Roma what they think. Of course, they are in favor to have a representative in the parliament. But last year we had elections in Slovenia, and they sent letters to all these parties which were on the, which wanted to be elected. And only two of them, they received only 2 answers, and very poor. So they can talk a lot, they will always talk a lot, you know, in public discourse, of course, against discrimination, we will work together and so on, when they have to show in public. But when they were asked what will they do if they will be elected, if they will change anything, only 2 answers, and very poor. So it is reality, you know. But I always say, because I'm working in the field of human rights, you have to have vision. When you have vision, this you will have, and if there is a trust and respect, there will be a result. And I hope we are now on the way to somehow resolve also this issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vera. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vera. Is there any more question or comment? I don't see any. So basically, with this, I like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Vera for an excellent presentation, sharing with us the historical discrimination or the problems which were faced by the Roma community or the gypsies which were called at that time, or Sigani, and also sharing with us the historical references, which is very important, that it was officially supported, this discrimination or was being supported or being promoted by the rulers at that time. It
Yeah.
was very interesting, and it continues. You had mentioned that though there is an improvement, but still there is a problem still continue. So but I'm happy that you are very optimistic that things will
Yeah.
improve. We'll have to put in efforts and we'll have to continue to do so. So we are very that there is a positive frame of mind in this issue. So it was good to know from you about the positive steps which have been taken, like on the education front. And we are happy that we have now a better understanding of situation of Roma community in Slovenia. And we wish that soon or at some stage you will have a representative in parliament, because that will be very important achievement, which if it happens will help you in taking up your issues at the national level and being involved in framing laws which promote or improve the situation of Roma in your country. Thank you very much to everyone for participating in this monthly lecture. We welcome your participation on our future monthly lecture, because your participation encourages us to do more events, more things. As Mr. Narayan Kumar mentioned earlier, that we are in the process of setting up a Roma Memorial in Kannauj, which is known to be a destination from where a millennium back Romas left India they migrated from India at that time. So things are well in advanced stage. We will have an amphitheater. We will have many things which will demonstrate the linkages, historical linkage of Romas with India. And we are also working on organizing an international Roma conference sometime in this year. And we hope that we will have a good participation as we had in 2016 and 2018. As and when the things are planned or the program is planned, we'll keep you all posted. And we hope for physical participation of eminent Roma scholars and academicians. And also, we'll try to work on a hybrid mode to involve participation of many more people online, which is the current practice. Thank you very much for Dr. Vera, and thank you very much to everyone who participated today. We're looking forward to meet you in our next session, and do read our fortnightly newsletter, which we issue every fortnight, covering important news which we believe are pertaining to Romas in different parts of the world. With this, we'll like to close the today's lecture. Namaskar and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.